Hi everybody, welcome back to the Master Flow Plumbing YouTube channel. Today I'm really excited to show all of you a product that I recently discovered on Amazon while I was doing a search for plumbing products to make my life as a plumber a little bit easier. So I recently discovered the Sediment Buster on Amazon, and I will put a link down in the description. But this is a wonderful device that I discovered to help drain and flush water heaters. This device is wonderful for plumbers. In my own experience, it makes my job easier. To get the water out of that old water heater and get the new water heater in place and hooked up. This device is not marketed towards plumbers necessarily. It seems to me it was more marketed towards the homeowner. And that's a good thing too. Homeowners should be able to drain and flush their own water heater and not have to pay a professional like me to do it for them. This will help those homeowners do that. I was a little skeptical at first, but that quickly dissolved when I realized how this device actually worked. When you go to drain a water heater, especially after they're a few years old and you haven't kept up on draining and flushing the water heater, that can be a problem. The sediment builds up on the bottom of the water heater and it plugs off the drain valves. And right here, sitting in front of me, I've got 3 different types of drain valves. It's not every kind that's out there, but it's 3 of the most common. What I've always had to do when I have a water heater that will not drain and I am there to replace it is I've had to do one of 2 things. I've either had to basically hurt myself and try to get that water heater aimed at a sump pump or at a floor drain or something that I could actually use, and then either break one of these valves off or try to unscrew it, which is dangerous because the water's hot, right? And then not to mention when you take one of these off, water just comes gushing out of the bottom of it. You can empty a 50-gallon water heater in probably under 3 minutes if you take one of these things out and let it just go wide open. Not ideal. So years ago I bought a really expensive transfer pump that I actually set on top of the water heater, and I drop a tube down on the hot water side of the water heater. I had to prime it, and I used that to actually pump the water out of the water heater sometimes to get out of the house. 70% of the time I can actually just hook a hose up to them and drain it, and that's wonderful. But those other times, it's just always been kind of a bear. And as I've gotten older, it's even harder. I can only imagine what the average homeowner would go through if they're trying to flush out their water heater and they can't get it to drain to begin with. That's where this product actually comes in. Let me tell you real quick how it works. Here's a diagram on how it works, but I'm going to show you and kind of talk about it also. So basically right here, you got this fitting right here, this big yellow end right here. All of that is a garden hose fitting, and it's rather stout the way it's made. It's not like a flimsy little piece of plastic. This is actually a pretty quality unit. It's made of heavy plastic. And anyway, so this piece goes onto the water heater drain. It basically just screws on here like this. It goes on, just like that, and then you'll use it. And then one thing I want to point out about that is that because it is a plastic thread and often you're going to be screwing it onto a metal thread, take your time, make sure you have it on there straight. This thing should actually go on there fairly easily. You shouldn't have to force it. It should go on all the way by hand, okay? And then at that point you can pivot this around wherever you need it. But this thing should only have to be hand tight. It should not have to be torqued down with a wrench or anything of that nature. It's got a rubber washer in it, just like a garden hose has a rubber washer on the inside of it. You can see it right there, that black washer. That makes a pretty good seal. And you know what? If you put this on here and you get a couple drips of water, big deal. So don't over tighten that, folks. So basically it goes on here. This is the bottom of your water heater, right? This is your drain valve, and it's got a shutoff valve right here. So I always start off with it off like this, and you connect your garden hose to here, and you take that over to a drain, whether it be a sump pump, floor drain, or if you're just using a bucket, if you have to, that's fine. All right, so right here, there's actually a Schrader valve, snifter valve, tire valve, whatever you want to call it. And you can see right there, it has a spot for putting air in here. So the idea behind this is that these valves get plugged up very easily. I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to take this back off here and show you. Well, we'll talk about these valves real quick before we finish talking about the sediment buster. So if you look down inside here, I don't know if you can see in there real well, but this is a very restricted opening that's in here. It starts off large on the back, but by the time it comes out, I don't know if you can see that on the camera down in there, but it gets real small, okay? Maybe this will be a better way of showing you too. If you look at this one, and this is actually way better than this one, but even so, these can get restricted and sometimes plugged up by sediment that's inside of water heaters. Water heaters get scale buildup on the inside of them, so they get big chunks of calcium that build up, sometimes just dirt and rust and things like that that come in from wells and from city water systems, and they can be a mess. It can be a hard thing to deal with. So with that said, let's talk about these kind of valves. These things right here are notoriously a problem when draining a water heater. These dial style valves like this, more often than not, you can't see, like this one, I can't even get it. It's there it goes. It finally opens up, and it opens up like this, and all the while your drain hose is actually moving too, and it's getting all twisted up. Not sure who the genius was that came up with this particular drain valve, but yeah, no, it's garbage. So with that said, let's go ahead and just go ahead and put this back on here, and I'll kind of give you. I apologize, we're not going to actually demonstrate this out in the field today, folks. There's plenty of videos. We'll link one in the description on how you drain and flush a water heater and how you use one of these sediment busters. So you got it on here, you've got this open, you've got no water coming out, and that's easy to verify because Sediment Buster's gone ahead and made this portion of it right here clear. Yay! So you can see whether there's water coming out of there or not. So again, I've got this shut off, my hose is hooked up right here, coming off here, going to a drain. All right, so no water coming out. So you can use a bicycle tire pump like this and just simply hook up your air hose to this, and you can kind of do that, and then you're going to just go up and down and kind of blow that. The idea is that when it blows air into here, it's going to blow that sediment back out of the way so the water can begin to flow. And often when the water begins to flow, that's good enough to get it drained down, and you can go ahead and either replace the water heater if that's what you're trying to do, or it gives you an opportunity to clean and flush the water heater properly. I've used this on a couple jobs already, and I'm just kind of blown away with how, I've lived all these years without having something like this, and I've been doing it the hard way. I'm not sure how long this device has been on the market, but like I said, I just discovered it a couple weeks ago. I've used it a couple times. Right off the get-go, I kind of thought, it's like, okay, I don't like the bicycle pump idea. And I will caution all of you to use common sense and judgment on this. But what I did, I happen to have one of these, which is a CO2 cartridge attached to a bicycle tire inflator. And I used this. It attached the same way. It's much smaller for me to store on my truck, so it made it kind of nice. And I just put that on there like that, crack the bottle, open it back up, and it's all over with in about a second and a half. I'll actually have this open at that point, and then the water begins to flow and begins to drain. It's a great thing. Also, folks, talking about using a CO2 cartridge and a bicycle tire pump and things like that, I've actually seen videos where people have used an air compressor on one of these things. For safety reasons, I want to pre-warn you, this product is actually only safely rated for 80 psi. So if you're going to use a method other than the manufacturer's recommendation of using a bicycle tire pump to do it, you got to use some common sense and use some caution with that. Don't take your air compressor that has 200 psi and hit this thing and expect it to not blow apart in your face. You can use other things, I'm guessing, because I have, and everything is fine, but this thing is not going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on the device itself. The first time I used it, we were helping out a homeowner that had a water heater that had gone bad and couldn't get the water out of it to start draining, and I was a little pressed for time, so I was a little irritated about it. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got a sediment buster on my truck, let's give that thing a try. And I came down, I hooked it up, I used my CO2 thing, and boom. I mean, just like that. It took me longer to walk up to the truck to get it out of the truck than it did to come back down and hook it up and get the water flowing. I mean, it worked that well. That is basically, how this device works. And I want to kind of talk about something else, that almost made me change my mind and not get it. This device actually does get really good reviews on Amazon. And by the way, folks, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description for this device if you'd like to purchase one. So anyways, I had read a couple of reviews. There was one person on there, I don't remember word for word exactly how he said it, but he bought this and he hooked it up and he drained his water heater and then wrote a bad review saying that I still have sediment in my tank. Well, You know, if you were expecting a miracle, I suppose you would be disappointed, because you know what? Getting sediment out of a water heater is a process. It's not necessarily going to be done in one sitting. It takes time. Even if I get called out to do a drain and flush on a water heater for a customer, that's generally about an hour and a half call. I start with getting the water heater drained down and empty, and then I begin a process of opening up the fill valve again and stirring up the sediment and letting it drain out of the hose until it stops, and then I turn it back on, I stir it up again, and I let it drain out the hose, and then, you know, I just repeat this process until I feel that I've gotten to a point where I've gotten a majority of the sediment out of the water heater. Now, again, now with that said, there are some water heaters, if you've never flushed your water heater and it's 15 years old, well, a couple things. First of all, if it's 15 years old, it's getting time to be replaced. It's what I lovingly refer to as a ticking time bomb at that point. You know, you're just waiting for it to flood your basement or your house. You know, 15 years old is, this day and age, a long time for just about any product that's made, especially water heaters. They are not what they used to be. So it's recommended that you flush your water heater at a minimum of once a year. I say, you know, if you've got one of these devices and you can do it more often, it doesn't, you know, you can't do it too much. But you know, every 6 months is ideal, possibly. I fell in love with this device the first time I used it. The second time I used it, it was, you know, reaffirmed. And I recommend, to homeowners and to plumbers alike, you know, to go ahead and give this device a try. So with that said, thanks for joining us today, and go ahead and click that subscribe button and like the video. It helps us out quite a bit. You folks have a good day.